Oh, and does
Go ahead.
everybody have the YouTube link too? Because there will be comments and stuff on YouTube potentially.
Yeah.
People might want to see. We'll try to put comments up on the screen and bring them up. But
Yeah, I tried to do that.
Can we see those in the private chat too?
I don't think the ones from YouTube come in there.
They do.
Okay.
I can test it. Yeah, so I just posted a YouTube comment and it didn't.
It does.
I see it.
Or not.
Oh
in the
yeah, there it
private,
goes.
but
Okay,
it shows
so it does.
Well, this is the comments.
Shows you what
versus
I know.
private chat.
Yes.
Oh, I don't know how it looks
yes.
on the
So-
on their end,
But probably if you're in the studio, you can see.
yeah.
Shows you what I know. All right. Well, why don't you get started?
Okay. Welcome everybody to our Periapsis Press Christmas just party. And we're sort of celebrating the launch of our Christmas anthology, and we have a lot of guests. So why don't you guys introduce yourselves? TJ, you want to start?
Sure. I didn't prepare. But I guess I know who I am at least.
You should have talked about this beforehand, I guess.
Just
just
say who you are. Say who you are and like which story you wrote and
yeah, we'll probably get into more specific questions about the stories and stuff.
There you go.
In
All
a
right,
bit.
cool.
So just start with what you want people to know about you.
Yeah.
All right. So I wrote Workshop Rebellion in the anthology, and as usual, I wanted something a little weird and a little zany, not funny zany, but just kind of out there. A little bit of metaphysical stuff and some fighting, all the typical stuff that you would see in my other work. And I was really attached to the idea of using Santa Claus as the POV. So that's what that was about.
All right.
Great.
Popcorn.
How about Kaylena next?
Sure.
So my name is Kaylena Radcliff. I'm the author of Mouse, the first book of the Elmness Chronicles, and I've got books 2 and 3 coming out soon. And I wrote for this anthology, Grandpa Got Ran Over by a Bane Deer. And I had a lot of fun writing that story and look forward to talking to everybody about it. So
I think next in the anthology order is Rankin?
Well, let's just go alphabetically, right?
Oh, Jeff Stoner is.
Yeah.
Hey, me.
Yeah.
Okay, hi. I'm Jeff Stoner. I wrote Yulnist Pays a Visit, which is a reverse Black Maria Christmas story. I would gamble that that's the oldest story in the anthology. I believe it was written in 2014. It was never intended for publication. It was actually a writing exercise. I wanted to see if I could write a Christmas special with the reverse Black Maria characters, which is why it might not make a huge amount of sense in some places. I did try to polish it up, but it was a lot of fun. So.
Yeah. All right. William Jeffrey Rankin.
So my contribution is called The Fairy Tree. And I guess it was initially inspired by a run that I do along the Miami River. And someone actually, by an old tree, they put a little fairy door. If you've seen those sometimes along trails.
Those are cool.
There's even like a little walkway and a little fire pit and some other neat little features. So I saw that, and that was around the time that you guys reached out and first started talking about the anthology. So I took that and combined it with some of my own memories of Christmases, not actual fairy trees, but some inspiration from when I was a kid, and came up with that little story.
Great. And then the last story is Alexander Hellene's and he's not here. He might show up later. We'll see.
Yeah.
So I thought it would be fun to talk to you guys about your stories and about Christmas in general, stories in general. Do you guys have like favorite Christmas stories?
Anyone can just jump in.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm thinking.
I did not have a Currier and Ives Christmas. That was my mom. She talks about sleigh rides and things like that. I didn't, but I did have a lot of fun. We used to have one time it was a huge family. We all used to meet at my grandmother's house, which happened to also be the smallest house in the family. So it was very tight. It was just good times. Looking back, it was always kind of cozy. Everybody was always happy. Typical of my family is after Christmas. We always did Christmas on Christmas Eve. Christmas Day is you spend that relaxing and sleeping and whatever. But we would always eat a heavy Christmas Eve dinner, exchange presents, and then in my family we always play cards. So they would play cards until about midnight. I was just a kid, so I really wouldn't do that. But it was fun. And of course, the one I'm remembering, one night we were going home, and it was a beautiful moonlit night, and it was incredibly bright meteorite, or meteor, I should say, because I didn't see it hit the ground. And my mother goes, "Oh my gosh, that's Santa Claus. We got to run home, and you got to get in bed." You see, they still had to get up. They still had to stay up and set everything up. And I was still believing in Santa Claus, so they had to get me in bed somehow. I was really hard to get into bed on Christmas Eve. Anyway, that's my contribution.
So even though you had the big like party on Christmas Eve, the presents were still Christmas morning.
Yeah, what happened? Everybody in the family would exchange, but the kids' stuff was kind of Christmas morning. I would get one or two things on Christmas Eve, but then I'd have my big Christmas on Christmas morning.
Yeah.
Which was always fun. You spend the whole day, and a food coma and playing with your toys.
Yeah.
Nice.
I think in terms of like a favorite Christmas story, and it's not a story per se, I guess, but I read it every year, but I read Washington Irving's Old Christmas, and love that. And then last week I watched, there's a movie called Santa Claus Conquers the Martians.
Heard of that?
Yeah. It's one of the worst movies of all time, but it's super fun. And I first saw it on a show called Mystery Science Theater 3000 like years ago. So I have that's on YouTube, and then I have a couple like digital copies of it of other people like riffing on it, and it's just a crazy movie, but super funny. So those are probably my the two big Christmas stories that I can think of right now that something I read and watch every year.
Nice.
Around this time.
I think I had that on a tape with Godzilla.
Was it the Mystery Science Theater Godzilla or
no? Both, neither one. I saw Santa Claus Conquers the Martians without the commentary. I don't know where it came from, but we just had it on tape.
It's like an old B movie, right? Like
it's very maybe a C movie or a D movie,
but like from the 60s or something, right? It's not
I think around 62 or 63, something like that.
I think it was in color, so yeah.
I've never seen it in color. No, I saw it on broadcast television. I want to say it was about 1972. I was just a little kid, and it was on my grandmother's little black and white.
Yes.
Speaking of Christmas movies, I was gonna say, oh hi. Our favorite and my favorite one to watch with our kids now is Muppet Christmas Carol. And I just love the way that Michael Caine plays it totally straight the entire movie, and it just that's why it works, is because he takes it so seriously.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about that on just the last few days, and I've never seen that, so I want to make sure I check it out this year.
Oh, that's good.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Alexander.
Hey everyone, I didn't want to interrupt.
Hey,
We were just talking about favorite Christmas stories and
Yeah.
recollections and movies and things like
yeah,
that.
but
Did you
the
want
Muppet
to?
one is great.
Yeah. Did you want to introduce yourself just quick? We had everybody just introduce themselves and just say just a word or two about their story. We'll get into more specific questions about the stories in a bit. So
Yeah, sure. So I'm Alexander Hellene, and I wrote a story called Christmas Spirit for that. And I hope everybody can hear me okay. I'm coming
Yep.
to you from my garage. It's way too cold outside to be sitting outside. I'm all celebrating for Christmas party.
nice.
I got some whiskey and a cigar, and I don't really feel like sitting outside freezing, so I'm sitting by the window here freezing. But yeah, it's cool to be on with everybody. I'm gonna try to keep my voice down so I don't wake up the house. But good times.
Trying to think. So my family, I don't know why it started, but my parents collect TV and movie adaptations of A Christmas Carol. So growing up, I've seen them all. The Muppet one was always my favorite as a kid, of course. But probably as I got to like high school, college, and probably now, my favorite is Scrooge, the musical one.
Oh yeah.
The one with the song I Hate People, which I
Yeah.
definitely sang to myself while I collected carts when I worked at the grocery store.
Yeah, all the music in that is fantastic.
Yes.
That's Albert Finney, I think, is playing Scrooge in that one.
That's possible.
There's so many of them.
Yeah.
that
Oh, yeah.
you guys have that.
I don't remember.
The one is sort of we watch it every year. Is the one with Alistair Sim, and I think that was also called Scrooge. It's like Scrooge subtitle of Christmas Carol.
Sure. A lot of them do that kind of thing. I think there's another one this year that's a cartoon called Scrooge, A Christmas Carol.
Has anybody mentioned Scrooged with Bill Murray?
Oh no.
You haven't seen that one?
I haven't seen that one.
It's from the late 80s, I think, and he plays like a TV executive who he's making this very inappropriate Christmas special on TV, and then the ghosts come and teach him the meaning of Christmas, but it's Bill Murray in the 80s, so it's pretty offbeat, but it's a good one. It's a good one, yeah. Haven't seen it in years though.
Yeah, he would make a good Scrooge. I don't remember that one though. I probably saw it on TV.
Yeah,
but I was gonna
worth
pick.
watching.
I was gonna pick Christmas Carol
worth
for the question as well.
It's a good one.
Both sides of my family have versions that they watch like every year.
It's kind of funny how like Christmas is the one time of year where everybody reads or sort of participates in sci-fi fantasy type stuff, when normally they'd be like, no, I don't read that kind of thing,
Mhm.
It's when I decided that I wanted to do an anthology like this, it was like, okay, how do I differentiate like the kind of fantasy sci-fi that I'm going for, as opposed to like your Precious Moments TV special,
or even just the kind of generic like I feel like most stuff is either like some variation of the Christmas Carol, or it's like we have to come up with a way to explain the mechanics of Santa Claus, but it's like always just the traditional American Santa Claus. It's not really like any kind of variation on it, and I was really pleased. I didn't read them more than once. I just read everything once, but I was really pleased when I read everything to find that nothing was really, all the stories are different, but nothing was really just like your bog standard American Santa Claus mythology type story.
Yeah.
So,
right.
So that was exciting.
Fiona Wolf brought up Die Hard.
The Christmas movie.
Never seen that.
Really?
Yeah.
it is a really good movie. If I would say if you're interested in like analyzing stories, it's just a really well told.
It's a tight
story.
script.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's one of those I've always wanted to see, and I just never got around to it, which is shocking, I know, but
Yep.
one of these days. Maybe
Yeah,
tonight,
that's almost
I don't
an
know.
achievement.
Yeah.
Watch Die Hard.
It's really more of an action movie that takes place at Christmas.
Yeah,
right? It's like
it's kind of a meme that it's a Christmas movie,
Yeah.
and people have
Yeah.
all kinds of reasons for saying this. I don't know if I would say that it's a Christmas movie, but it's a very good movie.
yeah. I've seen it in the background. I haven't actually sat down to watch it either.
Yeah.
It
Was
was
do you
always
guys-
interesting to me how they worked Christmas imagery into just about every scene. In the background, there's a Christmas tree
Yeah.
or something
Sure.
on, or it's always it's all through the whole thing. But you're right, it was sort of a meme. It wasn't an overtly Christmas movie, but did a pretty good
Mhm.
job of embedding it in almost the whole movie.
Was it released
pretty
around
funny.
Christmas time?
It had
sure.
to have been,
Yeah, I'm
right?
sure it was.
I
That
don't
would be
remember.
weird if it wasn't.
I think
I know
think
I
that's
saw
what
it.
they kind of did is they would with all those movies. So Batman Returns, I think, was around.
That's true.
Christmas,
They used to do it in sort of
Gremlins.
seasons.
Yeah,
It
I
kind
I watch all those to participate in the meme. It's fun to me. Like when I go watch my Christmas movie, honey, put on Gremlins.
Oh yeah, Gremlins. That's another good
Yeah.
Christmas movie.
it kind of makes brings up an interesting point about Christmas stories. Like you have something like Home Alone, where every like set is meticulously crafted to be red and green, and
Mhm.
like just over the top Christmassy. And then you have like the redemption story that the whole family participates in,
Mhm.
and the
Can I ask a question about that movie? Just because my son watches it all the time, and you pick up things you didn't pick up when you were 10.
Home
Sure.
Alone.
Why doesn't Kevin?
Oh,
Why
yeah.
doesn't Kevin just call the cops?
Oh, so I think there's a good reason for that in
I
the
think so.
movie, because at the beginning of the movie, the Harry is impersonating a cop and comes to the
Right.
house
Yeah.
and is like, they're
That's
eyeing up
true.
the house, and he like winks at him weird.
Right.
So he's got this
you're right.
fear of cops, and then he sees him chasing. So he kind of thinks the cops are bad guys. Until the very end, when he's like actually cornered by the wet bandits. Like,
Yeah.
And I think the reason like that they were late to begin with was the power went out and the phone lines were dead too.
oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Right.
Oh, right.
And then when
they came back at some
when
point.
when the police came to the door, because his parents managed to call the police from where they were,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
somebody went to the house. He was too scared
Okay,
because
forgot
Benny
about
was in
that.
bed.
Yeah. So the phone lines come
Okay.
back, but he doesn't. At that point, he's like scared and doesn't
Yeah.
want to.
I forgot they had come to visit.
Yeah,
Okay. All right.
I think
Stand
there's
corrected.
there's less plot holes in the first Home Alone than in the second one. The second one really doesn't hold
Probably
up
so.
to
Yeah.
examination.
So, like Alexander, I have a kind of a confession. I've never seen Home Alone, but I
Oh.
have seen Die Hard.
Okay.
Okay. We're 1-1. It's a cute movie.
Yeah, and the one of the standout things about Home Alone is the John Williams soundtrack. Right, like if you like John Williams, the Home Alone soundtrack is just gorgeous.
It's epic.
Yeah, really, really good.
And then every once in a while you're like, is that Harry Potter?
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's like, it sounds like Harry Potter and Star Wars and everything all mixed together. So
Mhm.
But like my point, the reason I brought up Home Alone is like you have these very obviously like Christmas stories, and then you have things like Die Hard or Gremlins that have sort of Christmas elements,
Mhm.
and I think that's kind of where, like we have 5 stories, and so they kind of vary in like on the range of Christmassy. But what do you guys think makes something a Christmas story? Because like,
Maybe like a
setting. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a special sauce in every decent Christmas movie, and it is kind of hard to put your finger on what it is. I think you're right. There have to be some thematic elements in there in the story, in a story or a movie. You know, you can't and they have to be interwoven properly. I mean, you just can't slap down a Christmas tree in the last scene and say, "Hey, it's a Christmas movie."
Yep.
But you know, when for instance, when I was writing my story, to make it really was envisioned as a Christmas story because I've always liked cheesy Christmas specials. And I thought, how can I make this Christmas story? So I had one of the characters actually remember experiencing Christmas as a child. And then it just grew out of that. And of course, none of the others have done Christmas, maybe once or twice when they were very young. We're dealing with a very far future where Christmas is sort of a very niche thing. So I had some fun with that. You know, people didn't really know what the traditions were, so they had to reinvent everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think a successful Christmas story has that healthy dose of nostalgia that people crave at this time of year, especially.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think like a
think
sense of comfort and home.
Yeah.
And I was going to say of hope too. Hope for something better in the
Yeah.
future.
I thought that was sort of maybe the Christmas-like theme of your story, Alexander, because if I remember right, other than just the fact that the main character is trying to get a Christmas present, there isn't really a whole lot of like Christmas in the story. Like it's not a story that with Christmas trees in the background and stuff.
Right.
But it kind of has
Right.
that sort of hopeful, celebratory, kind of looking forward to something better throughout it. So I think your story nails that ideal.
Yeah. It was I guess a conscious effort not to put too many trappings of Christmas in it. When you and Katie said it doesn't necessarily have to be quote unquote Christmas, I think I kind of ran in that direction a bit, but I was trying to keep, and I don't want to spoil anything, but I was trying to keep the underlying, historical allusions to the Christmas story in there too. Whether or not that's a success, up to people who read it to say. But no Christmas trees or anything like that.
Coral trees. Space
Coral trees, yes. Well known to be in space everywhere.
I liked that scene. It was nice.
Thank you.
Speaking of like thematic stuff, did anybody else try and like intentionally work in some sort of theme into theirs?
I think it
Yeah.
was.
Okay,
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No,
Oh.
go.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so, yeah. I wanted to have the undergirding Christmas message that period of time is bigger than ourselves, and there's a purpose for humanity, for life, and it culminates as a Christian. It culminates in the incarnation and then the resurrection. So I mean, I didn't write that like not it was subtle, but like that was what was on my mind when I was writing it.
I think yours is. I think it has a nice subtle, but I think it is very identifiable. At least it was for me.
Yeah.
Where I felt like Jake was at a turning point.
Yes.
Very much so. And that was a nice element. It wasn't like he was like Scrooge or somebody who was bad and needed to be redeemed in that way, but he still needed to be redeemed,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who's lost and grieving. So
Yeah, thank you.
good job. TJ, what were you gonna say?
I guess, and I actually haven't quite finished analyzing it for myself, because it was it's pretty much just free written. but I wanted to kind of go to the workshop and play around with the toys, I guess. And I was just kind of thinking about the whole the idea of things and people being naughty, and Santa's role in kind of, like he kind of enforces that indirectly by parents' threats of you're not going to get any presents. But like, it was just kind of fun to play with. What if he could physically enforce the rules? And what would he do? What would he use? So just kind of playing around.
TJ, what I liked about your story was the sense that there was a lot of implied backstory that you really didn't get into. And I was thinking about, now, how does this work? And how did this ever get started? And it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I really like stories that don't fill in the backstory too much. So I appreciated about TJ's. I like that about Jeff's stories too. It's like there's this whole world there that is, the story is taking place in. And I think even people who haven't read Made in His Image or your other stories would appreciate that about yours. But yeah, it was a great thing about TJ's too.
Yeah. I think part of that is the fact that he's not like the original. Like there's a Nicholas before him, where you sort of feel like instead of like somebody with a super long history, there's actually before them,
Kind of like the Santa Claus, except cooler.
Yeah. Yeah.
William, that's a nice tree, man.
Hey, thanks.
Really cool.
I just had to say that. Sorry.
It's
Nice little splash of color over there.
It's a little half-size tree I have setting on a table, and then I didn't have any boxes to simulate presents, so I just put books under the tree.
Oh my gosh, I thought that was like a big tree in the background. You did like that.
Yeah, you can't
like
tell.
That.
Oh really? Oh, I should have pretended it was a giant tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that forced perspective thing.
Optical illusion.
Yeah.
Wow, I thought it was like 6 feet tall, man. Good job. Sorry, where were we?
Themes?
Yeah, themes. Yeah.
I don't know if my story had a theme. I was thinking mainly about like, kind of like when you're a kid, there's a sense of like mystery and wonder with Christmas. And I think that's what I was basically going for.
Yours made me think of stuff, not necessarily themes, but like other sort of like children's stories. Like something not Christmas was like Beatrix Potter. I was like walking into this party where there's these animals in clothes, and the other was a couple of like winter stories. One is like the Polar Express, where you're like you're going out as a child on Christmas Eve.
Yep.
And you have this magical experience that you don't know if it's real or not. And then you have evidence in your pocket type of thing,
Yeah.
And then the other one was actually Owl Moon. Did you guys ever read that book as a kid?
I read that.
Which one?
Owl Moon. It's one of those ones that teachers pull out to teach like
about owls.
No, not about owls. It's like and now I can't think of the terminology, of course, but it's like as a type of writing where it's like expressive or something. I don't remember. Your mom would know.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
But anyway, it's a picture book.
It's an award-winning book. It won the Newbery
Caldecott winner.
Caldecott or one of those.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's about a child, and they're all dressed up in winter clothing, so you have no idea if it's a boy or a girl. But they're out with their papa, going owl, like just looking for owls in the dark winter night. And so those are the things that your story made me think of.
Nice.
Kind of a nostalgic sort of sort of captured a childhood special experience.
Yeah, there are definitely nostalgic elements to it, and like also like I like writing about nature and the outside and stuff, so I wanted to put that in there too, and have like a slight sense of danger in it as well when they're tracking through the snow near the end of the story. Not to give anything away.
Yeah. I think for me, what kind of stood out was just how it captured that feeling of when you're a kid, and you've kind of touched on this, but like when you're a kid, you have these sort of these sort of mundane experiences that seem really significant because they're something that happened for the first time. Like even just getting woken up in the middle of the night by your grandfather and like eating a donut would be like a really, you'd remember that.
Yeah, that's like an adventure.
Yeah. It's like as an adult, I can just go to the store and buy a donut whenever I want. So that's not a meaning, it's not a big deal anymore. But when you're a little kid, that would be like, oh, that would be something you'd remember forever.
Sure.
Yeah, all this whole conversation reminds me of another memory. I kind of had the whole thing with the nighttime walk and the owls and the snow. Where I grew up, we abutted about 200 acres of apple orchard.
Ooh.
And my grandfather and I, when I was very small, we used to go out and walk around in the apple orchard at night. And I remember it was beautiful winter night, snow on the ground, but there was no moon. It was very dark, but you still could see because of the snow actually did kind of increase the brightness and the albedo of the ground. But what I didn't see until it broke cover right over top of my head was barn owl. Now, the thing that they don't tell you, and you don't know this unless you kind of grew up around owls, is the thing they call a screech owl. That's the owl that goes, whoo, whoo. The thing the barn owl, though, the barn owl goes, ah! and I can still right about jumped out of my skin. We didn't have flashlights or anything. We were just just walking around talking.
Cool.
I'm gonna shut the door.
Oh, okay.
I think I remember that too.
Yeah, I won't forget that one.
That kind of reminds me of a time. This isn't really Christmas related, but I used to live in Colorado near Boulder, and one winter that we just gotten like a couple inches of snow, and the sky had cleared, and so I went out for a run, and where this is, it's all open space and trails and stuff, so you can go out for miles in the middle of nowhere. So it was nighttime, and I'm out there running, and I get to the turnaround point, and there were coyotes all over the place in this area. But all of a sudden, like a coyote real close to me lets out like a howl, and then you hear like its brother coyotes like yipping and making the noise that they make. And coyotes and like Western coyotes are harmless, but still, it's in the dark, it's at night, you're by yourself in the middle of nowhere. And I kept thinking about what's the Jack London story? I think it's To Build a Fire, where I think the protagonist gets eaten by wolves at the end. But I kept thinking about that. that was scary too.
Merry Christmas.
Scarier than that. When those things start howling, it's like it does not sound like anything you expect.
Yeah.
What is that?
Ugh. I didn't like Jack London though. I took the required reading, and that was it. I'm not going any farther down that.
Yeah, he wrote some intense stories.
He wrote. He was obviously a great writer. Like evocative because I still have pictures in my mind of stuff, scenes, and some of that is also because I had to watch a movie. But he was very like realistic in the actual sense of realism, you know, sort of a there's nothing more or less than what is here in this story, which I've always been more captivated by sci-fi fantasy where there's much more.
Sure.
And so that frustrated me having to read those. Deanna Wolf wants to know what kind of cigar you are smoking, Alexander.
It's one that's not good for me. No, it's a Rocky Patel 1990. I think that's what it was.
You know nothing about cigars,
No.
so
Probably a good thing. It's a bad habit.
my grandpa smoked a pipe, and he was the only one who smoked in my family. Although I think after he passed away, my cousin picked it up. So
The actual pipe.
the actual pipe.
I'm not encouraging anybody to smoke, but I've been told that pipe smoking is actually a lot healthier for you than like straight up cigarettes or cigars because the extra stuff isn't in it. It's just the leaves.
That's what I've heard as well. I mean, it's still carcinogens in your lungs, but
Right.
Same with these, so they say. But
So they say.
yeah,
They say. I do know this much. I love the smell of a cigar humidor.
Oh, yeah.
They smell great.
it's the cedar
Friend of
wood
mine.
they use.
nice.
There's a cigar shop in our town,
There is, yeah.
and I'm jealous every time I walk by because there's guys just sitting in the lobby just smoking. It's like, oh,
Well,
It's
that's
like an actual
that's part
smoke
of the,
room downtown, right?
Yeah.
yeah,
It's like,
That's
yeah,
that's part of the charm. Is it's like it just like forces you to sit in one place for a couple, an hour or two.
yep,
And I usually like to write when I'm having a
Yep.
puff. But in the winter, not so much. But this is a special occasion.
yep, yep. You can tell your kids, go away. You don't want daddy's cancer.
Don't look. Don't look.
Every year that goes by, I wish I smoked more.
Okay.
oh man.
I figure if I get to a certain age, I'll just go ahead and take it up.
Oh yeah.
Why
not?
stop there, TJ? Like, why stop there?
So my great grandfather actually lived to be 103, and he smoked cigarettes. So not even cigars or pipes. And
Wow.
like as a little kid, so he passed away when I was 8. So he was born in the 1800s.
Oh my
Like
word.
how cool is that?
Okay.
He passed away when I was like 8. We would visit him in the nursing home, and this was what, like 1995, 1996, and he'd be in the nursing home with his friends, like just smoking. It was great. I remember my glasses getting all covered with smoke.
Like at that point, what are they going to say to him?
Well, yeah, I remember my dad saying, like, because I think I remember asking, it's like you learn, no, smoking's not good. Like, why is he still smoking? My dad saying, like, well, the doctors said it would be harder on the system to quit.
Oh man.
Yeah, my grandfather, he smoked right up to the day he died, and he was in a nursing home, and he wasn't supposed to smoke in there, but everybody was sneaking cigarettes. He had this total fantasy world he lived in. He thought he had a farm. You go in there, and he'd say, "Oh yeah, I was out and I painted the fence this morning," or, I got another another calf or whatever. And the worst time though was one time he apparently had a bad dream, and he thought that he was going to lose his farm. The bank was going to repossess it.
Oh.
And he wouldn't let me stay and talk to him. You got to go to the bank. You got to go to the bank. So after about 15 minutes, I'm like, okay, I got to go to the bank. I just humored him.
You know what though? This all kind of reminds me of I know you weren't necessarily talking about Christmas memories, but this talk about grandparents and great grandparents.
Yeah, go for it.
Reminds me of even as a kid, but even now, it's always kind of fun to see what kind of gifts you can get for the grandparents and great uncles and stuff, in the family, and see what they'll get a kick out of. Because at that point, you don't need to it's nothing like, you're not going to get them anything flashy or anything they can't probably don't already have. But it's like, you can really, I feel like it's almost like when you're buying for a little kid. Not to be mean, but it's almost like the same spirit when you're buying for an elderly family member. Like, what's something that like they really want but never had, or just something that'd be really cool for them, or just something that would put a smile on their face. So we used to always like to enjoy figuring out what to get for grandparents, or even now I have 2 grandparents still alive, so you think about like what they might like, and it's always kind of recaptures that like Christmas gift giving feeling.
Well, that was another thing that was an element of your story, right, Alexander? Right? Because
he's looking for his grandma.
Yeah.
I had a lot of sympathy for him. I was like, when you think of something that you know to like, you're gonna go get it. There were several years in a row, it got pretty bad, and we had to get my mom to start like making a list, and then get my dad to talk to me, because we both got her the same thing. Because we both, you think of something and you're like, she'll like that, and then you get it, and then she's opening 2 of everything at Christmas.
I've done that with my son before. Got the same gift that my mom got him, or my wife and I will like both be like, oh, guess what I got for like, no, don't, why did you buy that? I already got that.
So we sorted out with the Amazon list. So we're like, if it goes off the list, you don't buy it. Okay.
It's like a wedding registry, but
right.
Yeah. They need that for baby toys.
Yes.
We have three VTech puppies that like sing and light up. They're identical.
Oh, I was just gonna say, just as long as they aren't the ones that like communicate with each other and like
gonna team up on it. There's a Christmas story for you.
Didn't Furbies do that? They talk to each other?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I worked on a DoD site at that time that they were big, and we were not permitted to have them on site, because not only did they communicate with each other, they also recorded things.
Oh, jeez.
They were an interesting toy.
Jeff, like there were DoD personnel that had Furbies.
There were. Yeah, when I worked on DoD, it was basically the same people you meet everywhere else. That's nothing special about anybody. Heck, I was there.
Okay, point taken.
I mean, I remember when they came out, they were a pretty popular, cool toy. And speaking of gifts that I've never had but always wanted, like I would still like to get one, just because they're kind of a neat technological thing. There wasn't really anything quite like them before they came out. And I think, because I've done research on them, I think they didn't really actually record, like the whole thing where they would like learn how to talk was just kind of all faked. But I can understand that would have been enough of a concern to say, nope, you're not bringing them in.
I don't think anybody quite understood how they worked, and there was an assumption based on what they were doing that they were recording snippets of conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose you could get one a top secret clearance and it would be okay, but there's a lot of paperwork.
We had a hard and fast no Furby rule when I was there.
That's funny.
Do you all find that like we're all roughly the same age, that when people ask you what you want for Christmas now, there's literally nothing like. Okay, it's not just me. Okay.
No, I'm like, don't get me anything. I don't know what I want.
Yeah, it's like
I don't have that problem.
No.
My mom switched this year from doing like multiple gifts for each of us to doing one bigger one, it was like, oh, thank goodness. I'm going to just give you 2 ideas that are larger, where it's like $20, I can buy whatever I want. That's $20.
Yeah.
100, 150. Now we're talking, I've thought about it for a while and it's been on a list somewhere.
Yeah.
So I was happy about that. And also it's a lot less work. The last few years, it's been kind of like I get almost what's on my list, So a couple years ago, I asked for square scarves, and I got 3 oblong ones. But
they tried,
and they were pretty, and I wore them.
We could sew them together on the long side and get
So TJ, you know what you want for Christmas?
Yeah, I mean, if someone's asking, I always know. But I gifts are kind of my love language.
Yeah.
If you're gonna use that terminology, yeah. But I am far more content in general. Obviously, once you grow up, it's like, let's just have peace.
Yeah.
That's good enough for me.
Or can I get some time in a box?
Yeah, right.
Like dinner, like you can make me dinner. Like that's all I want.
Somebody else clean up the baby slop off the floor.
Yeah.
That's a good present.
What do you guys, so we've talked a lot about Christmas, and we talked a bit about Christmas stories. What about like sci-fi fantasy stuff? What is you guys' favorite? Like, I know what you guys write, but like, what do you guys like to read and stuff? Like, and I guess I'm trying to ask, like, what kind of sci-fi fantasy elements were you wanting to bring into your stuff and like your story? And that's how I'm wanting to tie it in.
Yeah.
So for me, broadly, I like to read really any kind of speculative, but what I'm finding is the prevailing kind of trend of grimdark has been kind of like really challenging for me, that I'm not interested in, because especially when it's not written from a Christian perspective, it can be so dark and hopeless that like you end the story and you're like, well, what was the point of reading that?
really.
So, for example, I really liked the first Witcher books, and I really love the monster elements. That was really what drew me in. But when you get to I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't read it, but when you get to the end, the last book, and the way that it ended, I was like, is that all there is? So when I was writing my story, I don't think Christians need to shy away from writing the hard stuff. You can get really dark, but where's the end game? What's the purpose? And that's kind of the theme that I wanted to pick up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's me.
I agree.
Yeah.
Kaylena, are you kind of interested in horror at all? Because I almost felt like your story was almost a horror story.
Yeah, so I do like horror. I which is funny. The very first story that I wrote, I was 5 or 6 years old, and I found it, and it was about a monster in my closet that killed a bunch of people, and then
Nice.
I kept it as a pet. And that was like I was like,
Yes.
I read the story and I was like, what did my teacher think when I turned this in? I was like, can you put this together for me? But I know I've always been kind of fascinated with horror elements. So I work it into a lot of what I write, but I also not a fan of gore for the sake of gore. It's, so I don't know if there's like a line there. So
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there's definitely a difference between horror and just like violence.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The horror is about like the dread, the 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 feeling of powerlessness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the character making the wrong choices all the time. Like, don't open that door. Don't go in there. Just turn back, and they never do. For a reason, of course. But there's that's when I think horror. That's like effective horror. I find that works more than just like the stabby stuff, which some people are into. Like, okay, not me. But.
In my opinion, the better the horror, the less you actually see of the antagonist.
Thank you.
Whatever it is. One of the things, this isn't a book, it's a movie, but I love the original Blair Witch Project because you didn't know. They could have just been crazy. And it turns out, there was something, but they kept you guessing, and the suspense was just amazing in the thing. It was just the most suspenseful 100 minutes of my entire life.
I've only seen it one time. I think I've seen it one time, and I loved it, although I had trouble going to sleep that night. I kind of wonder now if I would find if it would have the same impact.
It does not. When you see it the second time, it does not. It's that first time.
Yeah.
And now there are so many found footage movies. So
it's been done to death now. But I saw it in the theater the year it came out, and it was like, oh my God.
I was working in a movie theater when that came out, and
get to see it a lot.
Very, very, very popular movie. Yeah, I got to see it a lot, and I was there was one like 13-year-old girl. I remember this night for a reason. When some 13-year-old girl came with her older sister, who thought it was a good idea to take her to the Blair Witch Project, and one of the other girls I worked with, we were all like 18, 19 at the time. She was cleaning that theater. I was counting the receipts or whatever. Alex, can you come clean this up for me? Like, what? That 13-year-old girl just like the biggest pile of puke I've ever seen in my life. And like I have kids. Like I have kids. She's like, I'll do everything else. I'll clean everything else up. I'll take inventory. Can you just clean that up? So that was probably the most horrific thing about the Blair Witch Project.
That's pretty bad.
Sorry, that's kind of.
At the risk of derailing this a little bit, I have my own movie theater story. I never worked at one. I went to see the original Alien, like the week it came out, with my best friend. We had no idea what happened in the movie. We had not read anything about it. All we kind of knew was the egg poster, which I think that's the movie. Well, anyway, my buddy, he's wearing a white T-shirt, and he had gotten what passed for an extra large root beer in 1979, which was a fairly substantial drink, and he hadn't really touched it much. And we get to the point where the chest burster comes out, and he goes, ah! And he throws the root beer up in the air, and it lands right on his chest.
Yes.
So we come out of there, and it looks like the thing came out of him.
So to get I guess to get back to your question, Katie, I don't remember what
sci-fi.
It was about like what. Yeah, I don't actually read. I don't read as much sci-fi and fantasy as I used to. But when I was writing my story for the anthology, I've been reading a lot of nonfiction lately, but I had most recently read Inherent Vice by Thomas Pynchon. So the kind of the laissez-faire sort of, I mean, the protagonist in that, it's a private detective in 1970. He's a full-blown hippie. And I thought the character was hysterical. So I think if anything that influenced the character of Chaz more than any, sci-fi or fantasy I'd read. But I had also been reading a lot of really cheap paperbacks of old pulp stuff I found at our local comic store. So, stuff like, A.E. Van Voigt. I had just finished The Tower of Xanad by L. Sprague de Camp. And there was another one. What's the other one I read? It doesn't matter, but I tried to, the thing I liked about H. Beam Piper. I read a couple books by H. Beam Piper, and one of them was called Space Viking, and it's about these raiders to go. They take over other planets basically, and every planet had its own unique thing. So that I tried to fold that into it as well. Just trying to think of like what's the not wackiest, but what's the most like strange in the sense of just different or maybe haven't seen before things I could think of. So that went into the story, but I confess I don't. I've just been on a nonfiction kick lately. So when I have a chance to read, I really haven't been reading much sci-fi and fantasy. So I got to remedy that. I'll take recommendations. So.
Have you read Jeff Stoner's book yet?
No, but I did read his story in the Summer Krsova, and I really liked that one.
Yeah,
that kept me up late at night reading that one.
Yeah, you should read Made in His Image. I stayed up till like 3 a.m. on Christmas Eve reading that, finishing that last year. It was awesome.
I'm flattered. Well, since the topic came around to me, back to Katie's question. Alex, I can kind of relate to you. But maybe the past 5 or 6 years, I've read almost nothing but nonfiction, except for a couple of the indie authors I know, where I've actually picked up their books, and mostly just read short stories. I get Scorsovas, and I always read all the stories from there. That's how I got to know the majority of you. But anyway, I wrote, as I said earlier, I wrote Illness Pays a Visit back in 2014, and back then I was reading an awful lot of folklore, not fictionalized folklore, but just like gazetteers of regional folklore in Europe, and really dry reading in one way, but really interesting in another. And that really was exactly where I pulled Illness from, because I was reading about the Nisses. I'm probably not pronouncing it right. The gnomes from Scandinavian mythology. And I had read an awful lot about those. And since I had Scandinavian characters, I just went ahead and used that. But when it comes to science fiction, I haven't read a whole lot in a long time. I guess I know when Larry Niven rebooted the Ringworld stuff, I guess that was the last I really sat down and read a bunch of actual Tradpub stuff. I don't even remember the name of those books. I think there were 3 of them. They had some of the characters in there that I liked. They had Beowulf Schaefer in there, who was always interesting. I remember reading about him in Neutron Star way back in the day. But that's probably the last time I sat down with any Tradpub science fiction, and probably Tradpub fantasy for that matter. It's been a really long time.
I do think it's important for writers like us to be drawing from, nonfiction or different sources of like different genres of reading, because I think your well can get dry pretty quickly if you're only consuming sci-fi and fantasy, because a lot of the same things come up. But for example, I had listened to The Making of the Modern World, the book about Genghis Khan, and that really was like, oh, this is so different from anything that I would ever pick up, and it helped inspire some culture building in my series. So yeah, I think it's really important to do that.
Guys, I hate to be that guy, but I'm getting tired. I got work tomorrow. I got to take off.
All right,
I'm really sorry.
Thank you so much for coming.
It's a lot of fun.
It's good talking to you.
Take it easy, man. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Well, Kaylena, you're talking. You went a different direction I thought you were going to go, but I was thinking something from what you said. I guess it's a weakness in my mind. Whoever I've been reading, my writing voice always turns into that person. I had forgotten. I actually read some Harry Harrison, was right around the time I wrote the original draft of What Price the Stars. I had finished reading. There's a well, it was an amazing picture book. Jim Burns and Harry Harrison collaborated to make Planet Story. Has anybody ever heard of this thing? Except me.
I can't say I'm familiar.
No.
If you ever see it, it is absolutely amazing. I love Jim Burns' art, which is why I bought the book. But Harry Harrison has an inline story that basically is told in captions. And oh my God, it's funny. But I had to really, when I went back and edited What Price the Stars, when I went to go to sell it, I had to rip out so much prose because it sounded just like Harry Harrison. I'm like, well, this has to be reworked because it just sounds like I'm aping Planet Story or Stainless Steel Rat or something, and I wasn't. It was, if I was just doing it unintentionally.
Yeah, I had started mine like a year ago, maybe two. I had been interacting with Catholic Twitter a lot, and I really picked up on the whole the saints dismantling idols and stuff like that in the wild places and all that kind of stuff, and so that quite obviously seeped in to that. But yeah, I've had the same issue, or the kind of the same issue with not exactly the well running dry, but needing to make an adjustment in my reading schedule. Like I want to finish. I haven't read everyone's story yet, unfortunately. I did start. I skimmed, and then I kind of went back and started. So I read yours, Kaylena.
Okay.
It was cool.
Thanks.
And I'm going to finish soon. But I was like, I realized I wanted to read, and I've been doing, as I guess some of you or maybe everybody knows, reading our colleagues and friends to kind of, just get reviews out and just kind of support everyone, which it's impossible to support everyone.
Yeah.
But I just kind of wanted to make that a thing that I did. And sometimes, you're surprised and you get blown away, and sometimes it's good, and sometimes you have to, move on. But I was feeling like I needed to get blown away. And so I, was kind of looking for something. One of our colleagues that really gets me, what I'm looking for is Fenton Wood. Every once in a while you'll catch me ranting and raving. I just think he's really, really good. And if I could steal some, I would. And I think some of that's probably in the story too. Just I like the way that he can push to a weird point, and then keep going, and then keep going, and just get somewhere that you didn't even think it was going to go. I really appreciate that. And in general, not every story needs to be that, but in general, I wouldn't mind incorporating more of that into other stories too.
Yeah, I love his stuff. He is one of the first authors in this scene that I actually read all the way through. I'm kind of the same way as some other people have talked about. I have a hard time actually spending a lot of time reading, so something really has to grab me in kind of a visceral way to make me keep reading it. I start a lot of things and I'll give anything a couple chapters, but yeah, Fenton Wood stuff really grabbed me. And I think what grabbed me about his stuff is it reminded me a lot of some non-science fiction and fantasy books I used to read as a kid that were like Henry Reed Incorporated or Homer Price, where they're just kind of like these small town kids doing interesting stuff type stories. But then he manages to do the whole take it in a weird direction, which is really cool.
Yeah, I really like Pirates of the Magnetic Waves, and I read the second one, and then I didn't keep reading in the series. I think I have them. Yeah, but I've been pushing so hard to get to do new authors. I really want to circle back though.
Yeah, when you're reviewing, you end up with a lot of book ones.
Yes. Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate. I like trilogies a lot myself. I think anything longer than a trilogy is a little bit hard for me to commit to. But I like the pacing of a trilogy. And so I would like to be able to read more than just the first book in a lot of the series that I've started. Yeah. Maybe one of these months I'll be like, okay, this is going to be the book 2 month. And I'm just going to do book 2.
Yeah.
So, William, I know you read a lot of supernatural horror type stories, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I just started reading a collection by Dion Fortune. And she was actually, I can't remember her real name, but she was early 20th century, kind of like occultist, I guess. But the collection I'm reading is kind of it's kind of like in my wheelhouse of like occult detective fiction. And it's really fantastic. It has, I tweeted about it a little while ago. It has like really neat world building and like these competing occult clubs, some of which are good intentioned and some of which are not so good intentioned, I guess. So that's been fun. I'm kind of trying to split my time now between stuff like that and then new indie stuff. Trying to think what indie book I'm reading next, what's coming up next. I can't exactly remember, but I have a ton of like indie stuff that I want to review and you know, like TJ said, you know, try to get plenty of reviews out there so you know, people can find out what's good, basically.
You actually, so thinking about what Kaylena said, you're kind of standing on the other side of that, where you actually, a lot of your books are sort of intentionally mimicking other styles, right? Like with your, is it Carnegie? Is that how you pronounce that?
Yeah, we don't know.
Yep. Yeah, some people say Carnegie, some people say Karnacki.
Okay.
I don't think it matters.
Okay. Not the only one.
Yeah, so like with so sure, yeah, like with the Carnegie stuff, you know, that's William Hope Hodgson, and that's probably one where I've probably kind of adopted my own style because I wanted to involve Carnegie's friends more to make it more of an ensemble thing, because I found that early on when I was writing, I found that I really liked writing dialogue. So I was like, and in the original Carnegie stories, there's not that much dialogue really. So when I discovered that, I was like, I want to involve these. I really like ensemble type writing. So in that case, I kind of like used a little bit of William Hope Hodgson's style and then kind of built on it a little bit, because Carnegie himself has like no personality. Like he's just like the vessel that you kind of experience everything through.
Sure.
And then like of course, like the Sherlock Holmes and Carnegie story I released a few months ago. That's definitely in the style of Arthur Conan Doyle, or trying to, you know, you try, you know,
Yeah.
you can't necessarily, because he's an amazing writer. Yeah. And then with the, I guess with the newer stuff that I'm writing, like the Invocations of the Submortal and that kind of thing, then even though it takes place in the late 19th century, I'm trying to come up with, you know, just utilize my own style and that kind of thing. So.
Well,
Nice.
I wanted to ask you guys to, as we're kind of closing out, sort of talk about if someone picks up our anthology, hasn't read anything else that you've written yet, what kind of things could they take from your short story and sort of expect to see in your normal writing, in your full-length novels and novellas? Like, what would you say?
Yeah, like if somebody really liked your story in the anthology and like, I want more of this, what would you point them to? Maybe would be another way to put that.
For me, so my story, like they was said earlier, has some horror elements, some speculative elements, and a lot of my work is character driven. So I would suggest picking up the Kanan Project, which is I like to call it Murder in Space, but it's a sci-fi novelette about a female captain faced with some tragic news of on their mission of like Job proportions. So that's only 99 cents right now, but if you subscribe to my newsletter, you can get it for free.
Cool.
I think I'd suggest Invocations of the Submortal for me. In fact, when I wrote the story, when I wrote the fairy tree, I was kind of thinking about, hey, should this be Sam, the protagonist from that series? Should it be one of his stories? But then I decided not to. So that would probably be a good one to go with. Of course,
I was actually going to ask you that because it felt like that almost to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of they share a lot of inspiration. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff, how about you? Where do you think people should start with your stuff?
Mine is so obvious because the ensemble I used in Yulnis Pays a Visit is the same ensemble from Made in His Image.
Yep.
Almost an identical cast. It's set. It's actually set about, I guess, about 6 years in the future after Made in His Image. There's a lot of things that have changed. But yeah, Made in His Image, the obvious first choice. But my characters get recycled quite a bit and appear in most of the stories. Of course, mentioned last summer's edition of Sursova. That had What Price the Stars. That's self-same Jorgen Pangloss shows up in both of them.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, What Price the Stars is the setup for both Made in His Image and the book I'm writing now, The Unwilling Goddess. And I don't know, nobody's ever mentioned this. There's an older story or two I put in Sursova. And in Making Good, does anybody remember Making Good? The short story set, it was kind of an Area 51 Men in Black. And there's a Dr. Pache in there. He's Jorgen.
Okay.
Before Jorgen was an immortal monster, he used to be a man. So anyway, he's in there. But yeah, pretty much everything just dovetails together.
Nice.
So
Nice. Cool.
I think it's rather too simple. Sometimes I'm a simple guy, so
I like it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's cool when people have a coherent universe of their own, I think. So if just the different stories dovetail, I think that's cool.
Yeah. I know Katie likes trilogies, but I just kind of like independent stories that stand on their own, that share elements. Like I grew up with Star Wars, so Star Wars is kind of my archetype for something cool, and that's what I'm trying to do with my books too, right? They're sort of complete stories that share common elements and common characters, but don't necessarily go together in a linear fashion. But
yeah, so I guess I'd say, well, I'm pretty much everything I've written so far is good people with power using their power to stop bad people abusing their power. So there's a lot of false gods and there's a lot of evil post-humans and dark sorcerers, and if you want to see them lose, then you pretty much can't go wrong with it. But I'd probably point people to Heroes Metal first, because I'm going to try to finish that first. Yeah, so I had, when I started releasing stuff, I just put out everything I had and I was like, we'll see what gets traction. and then they're all like this in sales about even. So it's like
Yeah.
I just got to pick one and finish and move
Yeah.
on. So Heroes Metal will be done first, and so I'd say
Nice.
plus it's got more reviews you can look up and stuff like that.
Mhm. Awesome. Well,
Thank you guys so much for coming and for
yeah.
Oh yeah.
hanging out and talking with
Yeah.
us.
We have to do this again sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah, fun.
Before we close out, we should just plug the book itself
Yeah.
for anyone watching. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you? I don't know if you can share your screen or anything.
Oh yeah. And
You don't have to. I can just talk about it and hold it up.
Yeah.
But maybe
the link is in the description.
Okay, yeah. So there's a link in the description. The ebook is, I think, $2.99, and we've been selling quite a few copies of that. That came out last week, but we just got the paperback up. So this is a proof. This isn't the actual thing, but it looks really similar to this. Just isn't this like a fun, nice little book? Like, don't you just want to hold this in your hands? Like $10, this is yours. $2 a story, right? I mean, that's a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
And
It is a
great
good
stocking
deal.
stuffer, great Christmas gift.
I should get mine Thursday or Friday.
Awesome. Yeah, it only took I don't know, 4 days or so for the proofs to come.
Yeah.
And we would have probably gotten the proof out sooner, except I learned something interesting, which is there can be problems that they will let you print in the proof, but then will stop you from printing in the real thing. So they wanted this spine text smaller. So like if you can see the spine text, it fits really nice on the spine, but it was too big for their like little
Guidelines.
they have like a spine tolerance that they want you to fit stuff in. So we had to dig around a little bit to make that smaller. But yeah, so that was up today. I can't see how many people have ordered yet because the reports don't show until they ship. So I'm hoping to see a nice healthy dose of sales in the next couple days when they do actually like print and ship. So
Yeah, I saw the ebook hit 16 in sci-fi anthologies.
Yeah.
Nice.
Not
yeah,
sure where
yeah, and that was
that was the highest I saw.
Yeah.
So and that wasn't it. That's not new releases. That was overall.
Yeah.
In new release sci-fi anthologies, it was #2 for a while.
Nice.
Didn't
Oh,
quite
that's
get
great.
up to #1.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were beating out a lot of people for a little bit. It's fun to see that, and of
Yeah.
course, it goes away right away because everybody
Right.
else is selling 10 copies a day. Everybody else is on their long tail of selling 10 copies a day, and we have our little spike of 10 copies a day at the beginning, but it's still fun.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun doing this and would like to do it again, maybe for Christmas, maybe for something else.
Yep. I spent a lot of time building my own software for typesetting and like formatting, and I built a lot of functionality for the whole like multi-author anthology thing, and then just had to figure out a lot of interesting things like formatting the poetry and like what do you do with a long title or like a subtitle and how do you fit that in different places. So now that that's all done, the next one should be like way easier.
Nice.
So we'll definitely be doing this again, and I'm going to probably try to put out physical copies of my books soon here too. So
Cool.
All right.
Awesome.
And then for our viewers, you can always go to periapsispress.com for reviews. I've got reviews of at least one work of everybody who's been on the stream tonight.
Yep.
And I also try to keep up with them for news articles about what they're doing currently, even if I haven't reviewed it yet, because I consider they wrote one thing that I liked, they probably are writing other things that I like too, even if I don't haven't quite gotten around to reading it yet. So I try to keep everybody up to date on what people are doing. And going to be doing some things like on the website with talking about what people are going to be doing next year coming up here. So
yeah. All right. Well, thanks again, everybody, for coming, and
Thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
all right.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
Yeah,
Christmas.
Merry
Christmas.
Christmas.
Good night.
Good night.